We've obviously moved outside to talk about the thematic section, which is about Liverpool. We're obviously in the tropics, a long way from the kind of climate and weather they do have in that northern city. I love Liverpool. I'm from Liverpool in the sense that I'm from Birkenhead, which is Liverpool's twin city on the opposite banks of the River Mersey. But now we talk about Merseyside, we talk about Greater Liverpool. So it is one conurbation with the same kind of accent, same kind of people. Well, Liverpool itself is very old in the sense it was first granted a charter in the 13th century, in 1207, by King John. It didn't develop very much, it didn't grow very much until the beginning of the 18th century when it grew rapidly. And here we have to talk about a tragic, heinous episode in the history of Liverpool, because Liverpool was became the center of the Atlantic Triangle slave trade. It wasn't the only city. London, Bristol, Brest were also involved, but Liverpool was the biggest operator in this crime, this great crime against humanity. It was called the Triangle Trade because ships would leave Liverpool and the other European cities laden with trade goods, which they would then sail down to West Africa, where the goods were exchanged for slaves. Now, it wasn't only the Europeans who were involved in the slave trade. The African kings, they were also involved. So again, we must remember this. But the slaves were then packed into horrible conditions. They were packed into ships and sailed across the Atlantic to the West Indies, where they were then sold and used as slaves in the sugar plantations, or to North America, where they were worked in the cotton plantations. The ships would then return to Liverpool northeastwards, following the trade winds, like before, with finished cotton products, sugar, processed sugar, and that was called the Triangle Trade. Towards the end of the 18th century, an abolitionist movement grew in Britain, led by people like William Wilberforce. And Liverpool did have one of its heroes, who was also a leading abolitionist, and he was a polymath. A polymath is someone who is good at many things. William Roscoe was a leading botanist. He wrote children's books, and he also was at the forefront of the abolitionist movement. So in 1807, the slave trade was abolished, was banned in the British Empire, and in 1837, slavery itself was abolished throughout the British Empire. As we know, it continued in the United States until the victory of the North in the Civil War, which then saw the end of slavery in the United States. Liverpool was also in at the beginning of the railway age, the railway passenger age. This began in 1830 with the opening of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. There had been other railways in Stockton, but this was the famous passenger carrying line with the locomotive, the Rocket, built by the great engineer Robert Stephenson. But there was also a tragedy involved. A Liverpool statesman, William Huskinson, was standing. There was a big ceremony in Liverpool and all the VIPs and celebs were there, and Huskinson saw his friend, the Duke of Wellington, that he hadn't seen for a long time, and he crossed the line to shake hands with Wellington, little realizing that Stephenson's locomotive, the Rocket, was hurtling towards him. Hurtling was the word he would have used at that time, and it hit him. It knocked him over, and although the Rocket broke speed records, carrying the body of Huskinson to hospital, he passed away as a kind of sacrifice to the railway age. Now, throughout the 19th century, Liverpool developed as a shipping center, and by 1906, you can read in the History of Liverpool, a book written by Ramsay Moore, a professor at Liverpool University. And in his book, he told us that then in 1906, 6 out of 10 of the world's ocean-going ships were registered in Liverpool, 6 out of 10. So Liverpool was the world's leading port. And this went on in spite of World War I and depressions right into the 1950s. I remember as a kid seeing the River Mersey full of ships, constantly departing or returning from North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Asia, China, Japan, and of course even Indonesia. A constant toing and froing. But in the late 1950s, an economic depression set in. There were a lot of changes. You won't see many ships in the Mersey now. You will see the Irish ferry, the ferry that goes to Ireland and to the Isle of Man. You'll see the ferries that cross over from Liverpool to Birkenhead. But of course, the huge workforce that employed, hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dockers has been replaced by a container port. It's containerization, which has obviated the need for a huge dock force, labor force. So that is quite a change. So the Mersey looks in a way bereft of ships, and it is rather sad for me, for people like me who remember when it was hustling and bustling. All right. However, Liverpool was also the major Eastern European port for the transatlantic liners, the Cunadas, the Canadian Pacifics, which sailed across to America. Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth, they would sail from Southampton, but many others would sail from Liverpool, and Liverpool was the headquarters of the Cunard company, which ran these ships. I also remember the Canadian Pacific liners, very beautiful white ships, the Empress of Scotland, Empress of Canada. But this then declined because passenger travel across the Atlantic was replaced by air travel. It was faster to get on a jet plane. And so there was a certain point in the late 50s when more people were traveling across the Atlantic by plane than by ocean-going liner. However, Liverpool is kept in the news, of course, because, well, one of the reasons of the Mersey Beat explosion was that Liverpool sailors on the Cunadas, the transatlantic liners, would buy original American rock and roll records by, say, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, and they would bring them home and sell them to the burgeoning Mersey Beat groups, like the Beatles would take buses across that. Here someone had a new Chuck Berry record, they would take a bus across town and bargain for the record. And that was, again, one of the causes of the Mersey Beat explosion. So Liverpool was ahead of the rest of Britain in this explosion. It was one of the reasons for it. Now, yes, Liverpool was then the center of the world, really. I remember my girlfriend and I having our pictures taken by American tourists that would come over, the way we dress, our style. But shall we say, after 65, things changed drastically. And by the 1970s, what happened? I mean, Liverpool became, someone said, it is in the throes of an irreversible economic decline. Yeah, there was gross unemployment. There was the city council had some not very honest characters, and this exploded. All of this exploded in the what they call the Toxteth riots, which happened in the Toxteth riots, which broke out in 1981, and for several days there was rioting, fires, cars burning, and it was actually triggered by the way the Merseyside police, the Liverpool police, were treating the black community too heavy-handedly. Any black guy walking along the street was liable to be stopped and searched under suspicion of carrying drugs or whatever, and the blacks felt rightly so that they were being discriminated. But okay, a lot of people sympathized with them, the unemployed, and so we had these riots. And for me, it was very sad. I wasn't there, but I'd been there during Mersey Beat when I used to go to the Rialto ballroom, where the Beatles and other groups used to play. I met some fabulous girlfriends there, and it was wonderful. It was what I call a temple to the Mersey Beat, and in 1971 it was burnt down. It was burnt, and now it's just a shell. So Liverpool, in the throes of an irreversible economic decline, finished Liverpool? No, no. At Liverpool University, my good friend and colleague, we were in the same group in the political theory and institutions faculty, was Michael Parkinson, not the entertainer. Mike was a brilliant student, and he went on to have a successful academic career all over the world, specializing in things like urban planning, and now he's back. He's back at our alma mater as Heseltine honorary professor and Heseltine professor for public policy, all P's, public policy practice and place, right? Now we're in email touch, and Mike, and now I'm going to read something from his details on the Liverpool University website. In 1985, Michael wrote a book called Liverpool on the Brink, which analyzed the causes and effects of Liverpool's decline. Yeah, Liverpool on the brink, city on the brink. On the brink, it's teetering on the edge. Now, Michael's later career, and I'm reading it off now, has been partly devoted to showing how much the city has changed since then for the better. Right, he has published the sequel, Liverpool Beyond the Brink, the making of a post-imperial city. Michael kindly sent me a copy of his book, and we'll see it, and we'll also see it with my wife Sri and our granddaughter Cara Rose holding it up. And I'm going to quote the inspired ending of Beyond the Brink. If Liverpool will never again be, nor should it be, an imperial city, but the post-imperial city has found a way, it's being remade. It is growing in self-confidence. It is raising its aspirations and its horizons. Liverpool does matter. It is way beyond the brink. I finished Liverpool on the Brink, that's his early book, if you remember, by saying the saga was a Greek tragedy. But that is no longer true. The actors in the current Liverpool play are actively writing a new ending, and it is not a tragedy.